Welcome to season 2 of Summer Showcase. I'm Michael Washington. He's Bryce Lagow?
Lego.
Lego, like Lego. Oh,
The
okay,
Lego,
cool.
yeah.
Oh, nice. All right. Yeah, Bryce Lagow of Pylon Productions, of course, as always, is, well, not as always, but as actually my co host, and will, as always, in the future, be my co host for the show here, bringing you ELF action. Yes, the intro you just heard is not deja vu. If you're returning back for this is another ELF show that is, we will get it sorted out as far as the schedule is concerned here moving forward. But this is Summer Showcase. That was Summer Showcase Overtime. So they are two different shows, I promise, and they will bring two different perspectives on the action at the European League of Football. First and foremost, Bryce, make sure you guys hit him up online. He's a fantastic video editor, does awesome highlights. If you're a player looking for highlights to be put together, he's your man. It's Pylon Productions across the board. I don't know if you have like underscores and stuff you maybe want to throw in there at the end.
It doesn't matter. It'll pop up. I'm
It'll
blessed.
pop up.
I'm grateful for the high praise from you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Hey, no way. And honestly, Bryce, it is fantastic. It's amazing. And I believe you have an intro in the works for the show for us. I believe
Do
that.
it's
Okay.
done.
Oh, well, hey, we'll get it uploaded for next week. That's no pressure on you at all. It's not a problem at all. So we'll have an intro next week for Summer Showcase. It's different than the overtime. So that's a good start to differentiate between the two as well. Well, we have a great season ahead of you. I mean, we're going to bring on some players. We're going to have some interviews. We're going to discuss the league. We're hoping to bring, some knowledge to American viewers about this league because it is very, very high quality football. Played. They're going into year 4. I believe they have 18 teams now. So there's 8 games every weekend.
Yeah, it's not exactly it's not semi-pro ball. It's real football. You know, these are guys who played pretty high level college football. A lot of them have training camp experience in the NFL, CFL. So yeah, some people would be surprised by how high quality it is.
And there's some big names over there too as well. I believe Devontae Parker came in to be an owner for the Prague Lions. Yeah, and Joe Thomas is the offensive line coach and part owner for the Munich Ravens. So, I mean, if you're here with us, discussing that, watching us and whatnot, there's some names. There's some NFL connections over there. I think John Gruden came in too for Milano, which we did not discuss. Yeah, which we did not discuss with Zach. I did not bring that up with him. I didn't even talk to him off air about it, honestly. So I got to make sure to bring it up to him next week just to see how that's going. But I'm pretty sure John Gruden has come in for Milan, and I'm excited for this season for sure. So
absolutely.
Yeah, tonight's episode we're going to focus on the quarterbacks. We talked a little bit with Zach. If you caught us in overtime, we talked a little bit about quarterbacks. This is a different perspective. We're going to talk a little bit more from a standpoint of what we know about them and what they could possibly bring to the team. We will run down and just do quick predictions at the end. Bryce, or if Sam is watching, I don't know who, but if somebody could record our predictions, that would be really fun too, because I was not prepared for that because I did not think about it until just a second. So
let's just hope Sam's watching.
Let's hope Sam's watching. Okay, you know what? I'll send him a quick message and be like, hey, you better be recording these predictions. Like, let's start there. Sam, record these predictions. Thanks. All right. Let's start first with the 2 teams that are on bye week this week, because it looks like with the way the schedule is being brought out, it looks like there's going to be 2 bye weeks per week. There's 18 teams, but we're still going to get 16 teams to play over the course of the weekend. Let's start first with the Madrid Bravos, just because they're the expansion team. They signed a lot of the Spanish national team.
They signed their national team.
They plucked a lot of talent away from Barcelona as well, so that's going to put Barcelona, who struggled last year, in an interesting format. But they brought in Chris Helbig, who was the Vienna Viking.
Big signing. Former ELF Bowl champion, EF Bowl MVP, 2021, I believe, Offensive Player of the Year. He's a fantastic signing for this team, a really good franchise quarterback to have for a startup team like this.
And the great part about that is when you're a startup team, like whenever there's an expansion team, I always side on the air of caution when I'm predicting or previewing their future, right? Because expansion is a huge learning curve. But a guy like this with talent and already there, that learning curve kind of isn't as steep, you know?
It's very nice to have a guy who's already cemented in this league, has been around for a long time, a veteran professional quarterback, and you're not stuck with a local guy who was throwing baguettes instead of footballs last week.
and, and the thing with Chris Helbig is I talked to him last year here on Summer Showcase as well, and we he mentioned how much he loves the league, how much he loves being out there. He's going from Austria now to Spain, so it'll be interesting to see how that is interesting, because I do believe we're going to try to get him back on at some point in time here for the show this year too, as well. I really like Chris. I think that this is a great signing. He's not a guy who's going to go up and put gaudy numbers up like Jadrian Clark did, but he is a guy who will. Come in and be he's a safe floor, right? Like he's a veteran. He knows what to do. He takes care of the ball, right?
Safe floor. He's not going to lose you games. Yes, Sam Baguettes.
Yeah, baguettes. Yeah,
even though it's Van.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think that that's a fantastic signing for this franchise. And to be honest with you, from a lot of the things that I've seen on social media over the off season, they really have a good organization over there, and they seem to be pretty well put together.
It seems very well put together for an expansion team.
Yeah,
and that's a running theme I've seen with a lot of the ELF expansion teams, as opposed to teams who are joining from other leagues. That the expansion teams are, on average, they seem to be much more put together.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was talking a little bit, before, and what I've learned about this is it feels like Germany and Austria have a leg up with a lot of the teams, primarily because they've been playing football for so long.
It's the heartland of American football in Europe.
Right. For sure. So I'd like to see other teams such as, Madrid making moves like this, and hopefully being able to bring in some talent as well to make this league more competitive. Because one of the things that we talked about in overtime was the growth this league has experienced over the course of the just from year 3 to year 4 alone. I mean, Warclaw Panthers have like 11K already sold to come in. Yeah. So. And last year, the championship game was sold out and was a huge crowd. It's probably going to sell out even bigger this year. So this league is awesome to see. I love the way that they're doing it, and the growth is fantastic to watch. So
there's always been interest and support from the fan base in Europe for American football, and it's nice to have a league that's here to stay. Really, it's obviously the majority of the people who love the game are in the Germany, Austria area. But also when you start to get growth like that in Poland, and hopefully eventually in Hungary with Fehérvár, and Spain with Madrid and Barcelona, that's when you really start to see the game become global. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and one of the other things that you're seeing with the ELF that you didn't see with NFL Europe is access, right? NFL Europe was kind of really ahead of its time. Like you didn't really get it. Like you'd have to catch the games in America. Like it's dark outside. You'd have to wake up early, and you know what I mean. Like, but with this Game Pass that the ELF has, and if you're able to afford it, it's pretty affordable, because it's pretty much $1 a game is what it basically works out to. And if you can afford it in a chunk, you get these games, you get all the replays, you can watch it at your own time. You don't have to wake up early if you don't want to. And I think that's fantastic. It's the accessibility to this league, and really gives an opportunity and chance for this league to kind of show, its growth and its talent, because there is a lot of talent over there. I say it every year. There's a ton of talent over there. And it's not just the Americans. It's the Europeans too.
Kozowski was the leading rusher, and he's a local Polish guy, a homegrown kid from the U18, U19 team for Wrocław.
So. Yeah. You said it right. Like mine's Wrocław, whatever. Coleslaw, whatever.
My family is Polish, so that's why I know some things about that. So
okay, that's fair. Okay, that's
the only reason. That's the only reason.
That's my team, and I still can't pronounce it right. That's how you say, the other team that has a bye week this week is the Frankfurt Galaxy. And they brought over Luke Zaraka from he played for Milano last year.
Yes, he was in with Milano even before they joined the ELF. He's been there for 6 years total.
Yep.
Before this year. Yep. Yeah, and he's a really I've talked to him before. He's a really awesome guy. He's
Mhm.
a veteran quarterback in Europe. He's got silver medal with the Italian national team in the World Games last summer, and no, he's a fantastic quarterback, a really good signing for Frankfurt going forward. Even though he is a little bit older, he's only 31. Not that old,
Not for
especially for
not for
a
not for
quarterback.
not, I would say not for quarterbacks nowadays. It's
Especially
not
not for a
anyway.
quarterback, but no, it's a very good signing for Frankfurt.
Yeah, and Frankfurt's moved on from Jakob Sullivan, who we will talk about,
Yes.
here in a little bit. Uh, but Zraka was interesting because he led Milano last year to one of the better offensive style. I mean, one of the better offensive teams in the league. It was
Mhm.
just defensively, Milano
For
was terrible. So it didn't work out for the record overall for them last year because again, Milano was an expansion team and they were stepping up in competition. So it is a learning curve. But he's now going to a team that has a pretty stable. They've been around for a while. Like it's not
solid a very solid program they run in
yeah.
Frankfurt. Yeah,
Yeah, and make no mistake about it, Milan runs a very good program too. It's just the step up in competition
exactly.
was a huge curve learning, but he played really well, so I'm really excited to see what happens with him in Frankfurt.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do this. Let's get the top guys out of the way, the guys that we know. Let's get them out of the way, talk about them, and then we'll get to some of the guys that we're are wild cards or we don't know a ton about. Let's obviously start with Jadrian Clark. Ryan Fire, he plays this weekend. Most likely the lead, the
Yeah,
odds-on favorite again to repeat as MVP.
exactly. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, what can you really say about Jadrian Clark and the Rhine Fire, man? I mean,
I mean, Jadrian Clark, he's a record breaker, man. I mean, he's honestly, I don't know why he's still in Europe. I talked to him over the off season, and I don't know if I can say this, but there was some interest from stateside UFL teams who were looking at him. But he's a very, very good quarterback for this league, and I fully expect him to. I don't know if he's going to touch the numbers from last year, if he's going to get quite there, but I expect him to have another fantastic year for Ryan.
they did lose. They did lose Mahogany, I believe.
Yes, I believe they gained Markel Castle.
I think Markel ended up in. Was it
Or
Ryan? I
was
don't
it
think it was
Hamburg or
Ryan.
Hamburg?
Hamburg.
Hamburg, okay.
No, no, no. Jarvis McClam is in Hamburg. Markel Castle landed in. Maybe it was Ryan. No, I don't think it was Ryan. I'm not sure where he landed. Now that we just talked about him on the last show, and I don't remember where it was.
Picturing in my mind, it's a dark uniform that I saw on his Instagram, and I'm pretty sure it was Ryan.
It may have been Ryan.
Let
I
me
don't know.
pause. Let's check. Let's pause the show. Let me check.
Let pause the show. We're live. We're not going to pause the show, but I mean, you can check it out real quick. I mean, I'll talk a little bit about Jadrian while you do it. Jadrian Clark, though, is a guy who, I mean, let's face it. I mean, the guy was a record setter last year. He had an MVP year. His numbers were gaudy, and sensational. But I did talk to Kyle Kitchens last year, the Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
From Berlin, and he said that these teams take care of their imports over there. So
Hmm.
maybe it was a little bit of Jadrian, maybe like, okay, yeah, but at the same time, like these guys take care of me, So,
True.
so maybe
It was
that's what it
Frankfurt,
was.
by the way. It was Frankfurt, by the way.
Frankfurt, that's who it was. Okay, so Frankfurt. So, the good old Galaxy was that makes sense because Zaraka and Castle actually were together
Yeah.
before. So that's what it was. Okay, so yeah,
Boy,
so see,
that's an offense. That's an
hey,
offense to look out for.
for sure. Hey, it's episode 1 for us too. Okay, everybody. So yeah, but Jadrian Clark, they did lose Mahogany, which was huge, but they do have Quofi, who
Yes.
to me, uh, Quofi's contract this offseason was opened a lot of eyes. It was a 3-year deal. There
Mhm.
was another, I think it was an offensive lineman that signed a 3-year deal shortly afterwards. But the fact that we're seeing multiple year deals, and I mentioned this a little bit on overtime, but we didn't really talk a lot about it. The mention that the fact that we're getting 3-year deals now, uh,
It it's
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 awesome.
it's great. It's stunning to me. I really didn't think this would happen so quick for the league to start locking guys down for multi-year deals. I don't even know if the UFL is doing that on a wide scale. It's not exactly happening. So to have the ELF doing that, it's fantastic.
It's just great for the league because again, it shows the growth, it shows everything that's happening. And Quofi, let's be honest. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Quofi. He's one of my favorite He's one of my favorite non-A import wide receivers, if not my favorite non-A import wide receiver. Just the fact that he got locked down for 3 years, I love seeing it, and him and Jadrian Clark have great chemistry. So that's going to be an exciting combination to watch as well. All right, let's move on to Zach Edwards, Paris Musketeer, the legend, the myth, the man, the legend, the guy that everybody loves, Zach Edwards. Last year had a terrible offensive line.
Yes.
Paris's O-line was god-awful, horrendous. But Zach still played pretty well. He was banged up a little bit throughout the season, but overall he played all right. What can we expect from Zach this year? It sounds like Paris did make some improvements on that offensive line. So
Zach Edwards with a good offensive line will be a top 5, probably top 3 quarterback in this league. He was fantastic previously, and I fully expect him to be just fine for them going forward.
Yeah, and Edwards is probably the one guy. Him and there's another guy that I really like that we'll talk about here in a little bit, but that I think could push, Clark for an MVP run as long as he's upright. Last year he was not upright very often.
Not very often, no.
But this Paris Musketeer offense was very similar to what we saw with Milan, right? Or Milano last year was offensively it was very good, defensively it was god awful horrendous. Which again, it was an expansion team. I feel like that they spent a lot on offense and didn't think the defense mattered because Munich did the same thing with the Ravens. And
exactly, yeah.
Segue into Chad Jeffries, one of the other quarterbacks that are returning to the ELF with the team that he was with last year. By the way, there's only 4 of them out of the 18 teams that have their players had their quarterback returning. Chad Jeffries is one of them. Jeffries lit up the scoreboard last year with Markel Castle. He loses Castle this year. Do they have enough at the receiver position to kind of hopefully do the shootout again? And they did improve their defense. I know they focused a lot on the defense this past offseason, but do they have enough with the wide receivers to be able to help Jeffries out and kind of put up the same numbers they had last year?
I think that Jeffries is a little underrated at the position. I think that Markel Castle, because he was so dominant all year for Munich, he overshadowed what Jeffries was doing. I keep track of all the stats for the league. Like, I make, highlights for the leading passers, the leading rushers in the league. And Jeffries and Clark were right there at the end of the season. And I think that Jeffries is going to do just fine with the existing receiving core for Munich. And they won't be talking about a certain receiver next year. They'll be talking about Chad Jeffries next year.
Yeah, Chad Jeffries, if memory serves and holds correct for me, I believe was a top 3 quarterback for most of the year last year anyway. So he was putting up numbers. He had a great year. But yeah, like you said, Castle kind of overshadowed, I think, a lot of that because of Castle's play. And now you have Jeffries kind of getting a chance to prove himself, right? Like it's now an opportunity for him to be like, guys, I'm here. I'm here to stay. They brought me back for a reason. So the 4th quarterback that's coming back led his team to a championship appearance. They lost. He got hurt somewhere in the middle of the season, and they were a different team. But Riley Hennessy for the Stuttgart Surge. This team really, really kind of struggled when he got hurt last year. They had one of the best defensive teams in the league. The offense was kind of hit or miss because they were high powered at the beginning. Then they ended up losing to the guards, who are now the mercenaries, in a very weird game. I mentioned it in overtime. It's very strange. It was a very strange game, but it surprised everybody. And then they went into the championship game, and they put up a fight. They were definitely outmatched against
Ryan. Valiant effort for sure.
Yeah,
against that Ryan Fire offense.
Yeah, so I mean, that was an interesting turn of events. But Stuttgart had one of the better defenses. Is this the year that they take the leap on offense and Riley's able to help this team actually get over that hump?
I want to add, it's just such a good story, Stuttgart, too, going from worst to almost. And I don't know if they're going to be able to recreate it because I think they were somewhat fortunate in a few of their games last season, but I would definitely pin them as one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league this year.
I think one of the best things about this team in this league is the parity that we're going to hopefully see this year, right? I think a lot of things is going to level out. I think that the ELF is making some moves that are hopefully helping this overall. I still think this isn't Austrian and German, like, because like you said, it's the the heartland of football over there. But I think that there were some moves made by some of these teams that aren't in Austria and Germany that are kind of really have kind of leveled the playing field, hopefully a little bit, and maybe we'll see what happens. And Stuttgart reminds me a lot of that. It's just can they get over that? It's going to depend on if Riley's upright or not,
Yeah,
right? Like
for
at the
sure.
end of the day.
Absolutely.
All right, another quarterback that played in the ELF last year. He was a starter. He got hurt. He came back. I don't think he really was the same person, but Jakob Sullivan. He signed with Berlin this year. He left Frankfurt, moved to Berlin. Um, the Thunder had an interesting turn of events at quarterback last year as well. So, is Sullivan going to a better spot where he can stay healthy? It would be my question.
I think that's fair to say because of the team around him. And as long as Jakob Sullivan can stay healthy, I mean, he's a former ELF Bowl champion, ELF Bowl MVP as well.
Yeah,
And I feel like he's right up there with the guys I mentioned before, Clark, Zach Edwards, Luke Zaraka is a top 4 or 5 quarterback in this league. I think, honestly, I'm picking him as being more of a breakout player this year with this new team.
yeah, and if Sullivan can stay healthy, I think that's very fair because again, it's he showed the talent last year. The Frankfurt Galaxy were a different team when he was on the field at the beginning of the year. After he got hurt, some things didn't turn out in the same manner. But it kind of bounced back and whatnot. But overall, I
I want to clarify real quick, not breakout, comeback kind of player.
come
Not
back. Well, I mean,
already broken out.
I mean, he could technically be a breakout from the last breakout. Whatever.
True,
Come back.
true.
So Sullivan is a guy definitely for sure. The other guy that's returning kind of, I say kind of, he played in the league last year. Carlton Aiken has signed with well, it was the old guards. They are now the mercenaries.
Yes.
Um, Aiken was a replacement quarterback in a couple spots for injuries last year. I think it was Barcelona when Connor Miller got hurt. They brought him in. Cannon of an arm, dual threat kind of guy. Can really build around and make some it makes some impressive plays.
Mhm.
I'm glad he's getting a chance. This is a rebranded team. If I remember correctly, I believe Devontae Parker has come in as an ownership group for this team
Yes, I believe so.
to help a little bit financially to keep it leveled out. They did move on from Norm Chow, I believe, so he's no longer the head coach there. But Carlton Aiken, what can we expect from him in this rebranded mercenaries team that's not the guards, but it's still the guards? Maybe
Yeah,
we don't know.
exactly. Yeah, no, he's a guy who's bounced around a little bit. He played in the Polish league. He played in the ELF a little bit last year. He's a dual threat guy. He's probably going to fill more. I say he's going to fill the Silas Nacito role, playing a bit of quarterback, maybe doing a bit of other things from what I've heard from other people. But no, I think he's a solid pickup for this team. Personally, I would have probably gone for this might be controversial, a different guy, but you know, it's I think it's a solid pickup for the team if they use him correctly and the way he knows how to play and the way he can play. It could be a very solid pickup for the mercenaries.
I think that this is a situation where the rebrand wanted a guy who's had some of the experience, bring him in, and hope that maybe his talent matches, his ability, right, or his ability matches his talent, basically, however you want to look at it. Because obviously the ceiling is one thing, but getting to that ceiling is another, right? So, um, and who knows? Maybe that's what they were looking for with the rebrand, but they kind of get a little face of a franchise, a guy that has some name stay a little bit, and maybe moving forward, he can be a guy we're talking about that they
Maybe.
bring back next year. You never know. All right, newcomers, because I don't think that there's anybody else here that had played in the league last year, so it's time for newcomers. I'm going to start with the big, I say big signing. I'm going to start with the guy that everybody has kind of pegged as a possible MVP candidate before the season even started, and that's Ben Holmes with Vienna Vikings. I don't want to be too harsh, so I'm going to let you go with Ben and let you talk and let you talk with Ben.
Well, he's an interesting guy because he was drafted into the USL by the New Jersey Generals. He was in the Saskatchewan training camp a little bit. Signed with the Argonauts. Dressed for a game, was released. He's bounced around at the higher levels of football, and I think this could be an opportunity for him to get back into that.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to see what he can do. I'm actually pretty fairly high. I don't know how you feel about him, but I'm fairly high on Ben Holmes. I think he can be great.
Okay. What you said sounded a lot harsher in my head when I was going to say it, so I'm glad that you said what you needed to say. I think this league is perfect for Ben Holmes as far as a competition level is concerned. Um, it also comes down to the fact that with the UFL and or USFL or whatever you want to say, and in the CFL, it just never felt like his talent was at quote unquote that level, but his talent was there. You know what I mean? Like you could see the flashes, right? You could
Exactly.
see that they were there. So I think this league is perfect for him, and I think Vienna is actually a really
Yeah,
good
that would be
landing spot.
fantastic for him.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic for him.
I mean, you saw how well Chris Helbig played last, or how well the team played with Chris Helbig last year, and Helbig didn't need to go out there and put up the gaudy numbers. If Ben
Mm.
Holmes is what everybody thinks he is, and the flashes that he's shown, he absolutely could put those numbers up, right? Like it absolutely could be. Um, I'm not as high on him as some people. I don't see a possible MVP candidate because I think he's a little too inconsistent at times.
Mhm.
But I still think that this league is perfect for him, and I think Vienna's a really good spot.
I think it definitely is too. I think he can. I think they can win a championship with him at quarterback. I will say that. I think
Yeah,
it's very.
I think that's very fair. All right, the next guy and a guy that I'm really excited about. This is a guy I'm high on. This is Levi Lewis for Barcelona.
Levi Lewis, baby.
Unfortunately, he's going to Barcelona, who has been ravaged by the incoming Madrid Bravos as far as talent is concerned. This team had some. They didn't give up a sack for the first like 4 games of the year last year, but they still only came out 2-2.
Yeah.
Um, they but
How you
in those
do that is besides me.
but in those first 4 games though, they were still in those games. It wasn't like they were necessarily all blowouts. Connor Miller was upright for the most part, but it seemed like the offense. I don't know if it was a scheme issue or if it was just whatever it may have been. It never really quite clicked on a explosive level, right? It was a methodical approach, and a lot of those times those drives end up stalling if you don't have a way to open up the field.
Yeah.
Levi Lewis adds a dynamic that Connor Miller doesn't have in the dual threat ability, and the fact that Levi Lewis played at a high level. I mean, he played in the Sun Belt Conference. That
I am extremely high on Lewis. He 3-year starter at Louisiana, won a couple bowl games, MVP of the bowl games. Spent time with the Rough Riders as well and the Seahawks, and I is his first year in Europe. I think he could be like the new Jadrian Clark in my eyes. Like he could be that kind of guy who puts up just gaudy numbers, and he might be here for a year and leaves like Madre London, but he'll put it.
I love Levi Lewis. I watch a lot of the mid major, Sun Belt and Mountain West schools, and like I watch a lot of that stuff. I'm a Florida State fan, but I like the underdogs, and I watch a lot of Louisiana. Elijah Mitchell came from there. He was one of my favorite running backs. Watching them down there. So he was there with Levi Lewis, and those two were dynamic together. So I'm really excited about this signing. I just hope Barcelona has the pieces around him. That's what I'm more concerned about than anything, because Madrid did take a lot of that talent. Like I said, there's basically the all Spanish national team is with Madrid right now. So hopefully they can keep him upright. Another newcomer I'm very excited about, and it's kind of biased. The next 2 guys actually I'm talking about are going to be kind of biased, and one of them is Stephen Duncan with Warklaw, and primarily just because of the fact that I'm a Panthers fan. But I also interviewed head coach Dave Christensen, and Christensen wanted to go out and get a guy like Steve Duncan, great size, and it reminds me a little bit of the size and the coaching connection of like a Josh Allen. maybe.
Yeah.
The only thing is that Stephen Duncan is not as mobile as Josh Allen as far as the size is concerned, but he is a very good pocket passer with a
Yeah.
huge arm. With a huge arm.
He led the GFL in passing last year. He's a proven quarterback in Europe. He's one of the best non-ELF American players in Europe from last season, and he was very, very good.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what they have there. I did get word today though that unfortunately Matt Cole is hurt. He was placed on IR. They signed Bender is coming in. He was there I think last year for a little bit and then ended up leaving the team. And but he's back anyways to fill the void for a little bit. So that Duncan Cole connection is going to have to be wait a little bit for us Panthers fans, but hopefully we can stay relevant. Hopefully we can be in the playoff rush and we get him back at the right time. So, next, my co-host on Overtime, Zach Bronkhorst. He's with Milano this year. Angelo State. I watched a good amount of Angelo State games, thanks to ESPN Plus, by the way, for that because FCS schools. I love watching FCS football. Bronkhorst is a guy who I really like. I think he's capable of making all the throws. I don't think he has as high of a ceiling as some of these other guys, but I think his ceiling is still higher than most people realize.
Yeah, he was a D2 All-American. He's an imposing guy. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think especially in this league, when you have a big guy like that, that's necessary, especially for a team who might have a questionable offensive line next year. And I think he's very, very capable, and he's going to put up numbers in this league. He had some fantastic numbers at Angelo State as well.
Yeah, I said FCS. I meant D2, but I mean they're basically, the competition level is almost close to identical in my opinion. So
high level of D2 is low level of FCS in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, that's how I agree too. Zach did tell me that they brought in a lot of Brazilians. They went to Brazil to bring in a lot of guys, but they have I think it's Chris Blair. I think it is on the defensive side of the ball, who's one of the one of the best all time players in Europe as well. So they definitely did try to do something with Milano that they didn't have last year. They have a defensive head coach who's also the defensive coordinator. They really needed to focus on this defense, and they have offense of pieces I think could work. If Zach can stay upright, I think this Milano team could be dangerous this year because they learned from last year, right? Like it's just way that the nature of the way.
If they have to have learned from last year. If they didn't, something's wrong. So.
They had to have. They had to have for sure, no doubt about it. And again, this is a team that I don't necessarily see making it to a championship game per se, but I could absolutely see them making a playoff push. Absolutely, if that defense is improved,
for sure.
Yes, as long as that defense is improved, they could definitely do it. So
even just a little bit,
just a little bit, even just a little bit. Let's see. So D'Angelo Fulford, he signed with the Raiders T-Roll. This is an interesting situation because obviously Sean Shelton was Sean Shelton.
Yeah, Sean Shelton.
Sean Shelton.
Yes.
The Tom Brady of Raiders T-Roll, obviously, and for sure. And he retired. They brought in Christian Strong. They were 6-2. It was him and Jarvis McClam. They were lighting it up for the most part. He was top 5 in passing, and then they moved on from him. They didn't think it was championship caliber, and then we saw kind of what happened. It never really connected. D'Angelo Fulford is a guy who we don't really know a ton about, right?
Yeah. So some people stateside might know him because he was in the XFL,
right?
But he is a 3-time national champion at Mount Union, a 3-time D3 All-American as well. He can play. He really can. I'm higher on D'Angelo Fulford, maybe because I know more about him than most people, but yes, I think he is a very capable quarterback at this level.
Yeah, and I think again this is another situation where this league may be perfect for him. It's just he hasn't played in a while, so we don't really know a ton about him, right? Like I think Fulford is talented. I think he has the athleticism to be able to make plays and do it. It's just that the Raiders T-Roll, what's his leash going to be like, right? Like at 6-2 last year, and they moved on from their guy, like. So what's the leash going to be like? You know what I mean? So I hope it works. Like, I hope it works out for all these guys. Obviously, like, I don't want to see any of them not, be without a job or whatever. It's just these organizations, they do what they do, and they have what they have. It's just very. I'm just very curious about what the leashes are going to be like for some of these guys, right?
It can be
So
very volatile for a quarterback like an American import in Europe because you're expected to produce right away because you played at a high level in college and you may probably have some pro experience in the States. And if you're not producing, they will move on fast.
yeah, for sure.
And even if you're not producing well enough, they will still.
Yeah, one of the things that I would like to see change, and I mentioned it, to Zach earlier, is I would love to see, maybe the American import still be four, but the quarterback doesn't count. You
Yes,
know
you
what I
mentioned
mean?
that to me a couple of days ago over text. I,
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense. I know what the league is doing, trying to not have so many Americans like NFL Europe was. It was all American minus the punter, maybe. And having a solid core of homegrown guys is very important, but every team needs an American quarterback. That's
well,
just, I mean, in my
well, I primarily mentioned it because I still think it's a way to be able to level the playing field. Because let's be honest, the German teams and the Austrian teams, we talk about it all the time. It's the heartland of that league. They've been around playing since like World War II, like 1940s. Like
exactly, yeah,
they have a leg up on a lot of these other teams that are trying to get
yeah,
in there. And I feel like that if you could turn around and be like, okay, we have two defensive A imports, we have two offensive A imports, we don't have to use one on a quarterback. Do we go get a second A import at wide receiver, or do we do an offensive tackle, or do a center?
there's more
You know what I mean?
flexibility in what the teams can do. Like
Right.
this rule currently hurts teams like Fehervar
Yeah.
or to a lesser extent Wroclaw, teams like that, or Prague, and their floor for their base to get players from locally is lower, unfortunately, than the German and the Austrian teams.
And I feel like that's a situation where you know I feel like that's a situation where it just would also help level the playing field as well, because you have the import spot. And the only other thing I could say is just get rid of the import spot, which to me, if you're the European League of Football, like, I don't think you should have an import. Like, you're
Yeah.
covering the basis by saying European, but that's just the way that boils down to type of situation. So,
I don't
that
mind the e-import as much. I think that having local, like a good amount of local guys on the team is important to help show like the fans, like, hey, these are our guys. Like these are guys from the town you grew up in, that kind of stuff. But I think they both imports limits should be expanded.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's something that I could see, possibly helping. But they did reduce the American imports from 6 to 4, which I'm not
Yeah.
against. I'm not against, because like I love the idea of the homegrown. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great for the sport, especially great for the country. It's just, I feel like if you didn't have to use one of those spots on a quarterback, and you can just say, go get a quarterback, and you can use an A import on like an offensive tackle or a tight end or another wide receiver, or however you want to look at it. I think that would help level the playing field a little bit more across the board, for all these teams. That's just the way I look at it.
Certainly, yes.
All right, now moving on to Hamburg and Javarian Smith. Another guy that I don't personally know a ton about. I did, hear a little bit last, with on overtime, a little bit about him. Um, it sounds like he has good athleticism, and he sounds like he's put up numbers in places that he's been.
Yeah, he was in the GFL last year. He's coming off a really good year. Before that, he was a former D1 guy, but he ended up at Lake, I believe Lakes. Let me read it. Lake something college at the Lake Erie College, I believe.
Lake Erie.
And no, ever since he's been in Europe, he's been putting up good numbers. He was top 3 in the GFL last season in almost all of the stats for quarterbacks, and a very solid pickup, I believe.
Yeah, again, this is going to be a wild card. So Hamburg was an interesting team last year because they hovered in the middle of the group. They had a couple of tough games with Warclaw last year. They actually ended up beating them in the second game, which I thought was going to end the Panthers' playoff hopes. But It just kind of felt like they never were able to put it together. But they bring in Smith and hopefully maybe add a little more firepower on offense for them to be able to compete with some of these more offensively firepowered teams.
Yes.
So, all right, Jack Mangill for Fierfar. Interesting signing to me. Not a guy that I was expecting to see a name in there, but the Enthroners really had a lot of issues last year.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that being too attractive for prospective
mm,
Americans to come over. So maybe this was the best they could get, Jack Mangle. But he's also not a bad quarterback at
no,
all.
not at all. That's why I said it was surprising because it just wasn't a name I was expecting to see. I think he's actually a fairly solid quarterback.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were going the other way. I thought you were
No,
like,
oh no. I was just surprised because it wasn't like it wasn't a name that I had on my radar
oh
for
yeah,
anybody for the ELF, and they signed him, and I was kind of like, okay, like I know the name, and I looked him up, and I was like, he's really
yeah.
not a bad
And
quarterback. It's just
if he was
the
going
name
to
I was
get
surprising.
LF, I would think he would have gone to a team with, I'm not going to throw shade on Fehérvar, but they had some issues last year.
They had a ton. They had a ton.
To get him is a big pull for them.
Yeah, so I'm very curious to see what happens with them because again, they were an expansion team last year that they struggled. It was a jump up. I think that I'm glad that they were able to finish the season. I mean, it sounds like that they are in a much better spot than they were last year as far as like being able to football operations. So it's always promising when you see that happen. Um, so Mangel is going to be an interesting watch this year for sure, and we'll see him in week 1 for sure.
Certainly. And it's
Yeah,
interesting what they are going to be able to put around him to help him
yeah,
succeed too.
yeah, for sure. And one of the last two guys, and by the way, these were not in any order of my rankings or anything. I just wanted to group them together as far as returning guys, guys that played, et cetera, et cetera. So don't take this as rankings for anybody that's out there, and don't take any of this to heart. It's just thoughts and whatever else. Kyrie Lyles for Prague. Prague, another team, had a lot of issues last year. They've rebranded. Which by the way, I love the rebrand. I love the new logo. I love the colors. It's awesome.
It's
Uh,
fantastic.
it's fantastic. And Kyrie Lyles is a guy who is a relative unknown overall for the average person. Luckily, we're not average here.
Facts.
I like Kyrie. I think it's a good spot for him. Again, it's very close. It's very similar to the Jack Mangill situation. A name that I was not expecting, but I am glad that he's there, and I'm glad he's going to get an opportunity and chance.
Yeah, and Kari Laos is really interesting to me because he was kind of like a high profile recruit coming out of high school. I believe it was Saguaro, yeah, in Arizona. He committed to Wisconsin out of high school, 3-star guy, and he didn't quite work out there, and transferred to JUCO, made his way back to D1 ball at Southern Illinois, and then ended up at Jackson State. Started in their Celebration Bowl win when Deion Sanders was there, pre-Shedeur Sanders.
Yep.
And no, he's an interesting signing, and I like the signing. I wasn't exactly expecting to see when I was doing my research for this. I wasn't expecting to see Kari Laos on there because I'm like, oh, I know this guy. He's a fairly big name in FCS level football. But yeah,
Yeah, he was. I believe he was at Jackson State with Matthew Vitelli too. So I
yes,
mean, it's interesting to see them both. Vitelli was with the LFA this past year, but
Mhm.
he was with Warclaw last year. So it's
Yeah,
interesting to see that full circle. So I'm excited to see Kyrie Lyles and Prague. And any of the expansion teams that struggled last year, I'm really looking forward to see what happens this year because I I'm not a guy who likes to see bottom feeders like in the NFL, I cheered for Detroit just because they were always losing. Like I was like, come on, guys, you know what I mean? Like, and now that they're good, I'm like, yes, this is what I've always wanted. Teams like that, with the exception of the Jets, they can always be miserable. Or the Giants because I'm an NFC East guy, so anybody in the NFC can be terrible for all I care. But yeah, it's I want to see these guys improve, and I think it's also good for the sport if we can get a little more parity and we're not having 1 in 11 teams getting blown out every week or whatever else. You know what I mean? So I'm excited for Kyrie Lyles, and I really really hope the best for him. I actually hope the best for all these quarterbacks, like I said. So now this is the biggest wild card to me. The last
this
quarterback we're going to say
interesting.
this is an extremely interesting one. Cologne struggled last year. And it's weird because they struggled offensively more than anything. Um, Isaiah Weed, and he played in the GLL too.
GFL 2, yeah. It's he's an interesting guy because he played, small school ball. He played at D3 Minot State his freshman year, transferred to Northwest Oklahoma State, which is not a good team at the D2 level. They are horrible. And coming over to Europe, he played in some interesting leagues. He played in the Serbian league, which is not necessarily the highest level of football. So for him to go from Serbia to GFL 2 to the ELF in a fairly short time span is it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very, very
He's a
interesting.
dual threat guy, so I'm thinking maybe they see him doing things that other quarterbacks can't do to extend plays, that kind of stuff. But I'm interested to see how he can adapt to this level.
I just am very curious as the jump. Is it going to be too much? And what is his leash going to look like, right? Like that's the biggest thing is like you went out of your way to sign a guy who was playing at a level that was below the level that usually you pluck
Yeah,
talent from, and you're going to make him a starter at this level. It's curious to me. It's a very strange move. A wild card. He may come in and surprise everybody because he's a wild
they
card,
must
right?
have faith in him. They must have complete faith in him, make him a
Oh,
starter after coming straight from a smaller league like that to the ELF.
yeah.
Hey, I trust the coaching staff to make their decisions, I guess.
Hey, I mean, you have to at this point, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's before week one. Previews of the quarterbacks, all 17 right there. 17? 18.
18.
No, 18. Was that 18?
I believe it was 18, wasn't it?
I don't think we missed anybody, did we?
Don't think so. There's 18 teams.
There is 18 teams. Why did it only count 17 on the little sheet that I have here? All right, whatever. I don't
Two
know.
head bye weeks. 2 head bye weeks.
Yeah, but that's okay. I don't know. I'm just losing my head. Maybe I don't freaking know. All right, let's jump into predictions real quick. So I'm gonna kind of be corny here because I gave my predictions on OT with the scores. I'm not going to give the scores on this one just because I have the scores there. So, and I don't have them written down to be honest with you. So I am going to give multiple different scores if I do it that way. So I'm going to take it from OT, write them down for us here as well. And moving forward, I will have the numbers, the scores here because OT should hopefully air after us. So Bryce, you can give me the score. Sam said that he is going to write it down. I think.
Perfect.
If not, he can rewatch it and write
Hopefully
it
he's
down.
still watching.
Either way, yeah. Well, I mean, our counter has progressively moved up. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody who is tuning in to watch Summer Showcase here. The Summer Showcase series is expanding, folks. Before we get into the predictions, I want to shamelessly plug a few things. We have this show, which is Summer Showcase, which is the one from last year. Bryce is going to be coming on full time. Thank you, Bryce. He is a fantastic co-host. He's also a fantastic highlight maker. Hit up Highland Productions as well, and make sure you follow, subscribe, and hit him up for anything if you're a player. But the series is also evolving. We have Summer Showcase Overtime, which is going to be airing after this show. It will be a recording of sorts, or it will be with Zach Bronkhorst, who is the quarterback for Milano Seaman. He is going to be a co-host for me on that show on a consistent basis. We're hoping to bring players for both shows from different perspectives. We're going to talk about different topics as well, just to cover both sides of things, because neither Bryce nor I play in the league. So Zach gives us a different perspective on the far side of that. Also, a new show is in the works as well for Summer Showcase. It's called Summer Showcase Northern Lights. It is a CFL.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a CFL Canadian Football League show that will be starting here very, very shortly as well. The Northern Lights name just came to me while I was driving one day. It was just
That's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. So Sam said the same thing. So I kind of felt good for that. So I take pride in that one. So yeah. So CFL Northern Lights will air at some point in time this summer as well. So the Summer Showcase series is spiraling, and obviously this other spinoff of the Summer Showcase is the Spring Showcase, which covers the LFA. That series is winding down. There's only 3 episodes left of that. That could be happened here Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. on the Shady Sports Network. And I just want to thank Sam again for giving us the platform to do all this fun stuff for sure. So, all right, predictions, Bryce. This is the moment, right? Here we go. The Vienna Vikings at the VFR Enthroners.
Look, as much as I want this league to be more competitive than it has been in the past, I don't see this one being competitive. Um, Vienna at least 40. I'm gonna say 45, and Throners 12.
That's very close to the score I had. That one I do remember. It's not that I don't trust that VRFR is going to be as miserable as they were last year as far as like the issues that they had. It's just I don't know what to expect from that team right now. And Vienna, let's just be honest. I mean, they're the cream of the crop in this league. They're one of the top 3 teams every year, and until they get knocked off that pedestal, right? Like it's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah,
I had a pretty big score like
exactly.
that. I had a pretty big score like that too. I think it was in the 40s to 17 or something like that. So as much as I would like to see the parity on that as well, unfortunately, I don't think week 1 is going to be where we're going to see it with VFR. All right, Barcelona and Helvetic, the Barcelona Dragons and the Helvetic Mercenaries. Both teams really had issues last year. There's a lot of question marks surrounding both these guys this year, both these teams this year. Barcelona's got a good quarterback coming in, but we don't know what the rest of the team's going to look like. Helvetic looks like that they're improving, but what are we going to get with the Mercenaries?
Look, I believe in the Barcelona Dragons more than I believe in the Mercenaries. So by that logic, I'm going to go 30 to 15.
Okay.
Barcelona Dragons over the Mercenaries.
I had a closer game, but I had Barcelona winning as well. I think it was like 28 to 27 to 24 or something like that. I had a pretty close game, primarily just because I don't know what to expect with Levi Lewis in Barcelona because of the team around him, and Carlton Aiken. I think he's a talented guy. I just don't know what Helvetic is going to bring to the table
Yes.
this year. New ownership group, so that's a positive. They rebranded themselves, which is awesome. But they had a kind of a turmoil. Their offseason was a little bit with surrounded with
Very
turmoil.
tumultuous.
Yeah, it was
They were
just
on
very.
the back. Yeah.
Yeah, like they only had 2 weeks of camp, I guess, and the rebrand and all that stuff. So hopefully it will work out. But week 1 is usually not the spot where you want all that to happen. So
Yeah.
I just hope for a close game. The Raiders T roll. We talked a little bit about D'Angelo Fulford. We talked about a little bit what
Mhm.
that franchise did last year. Solid defense, offense kind of struggled, sputtered down the stretch. Milano Seaman offense was really good, defense was terrible. Some
Yes.
changes were made though for both these squads. What's it look like for this game?
Look, I believe that if D'Angelo Fulford performs like I think he can, this Raiders tier role will be just fine this year, and they're going to take care of business against Milano in the first game, 20 to 17.
This game, I remember the score because it was a close score for me. I picked Milano. I think the defensive head coach, I think the defensive coordinator position, the same person. He has control of that defense. They spent some people in. They brought in Blair. Uh, but I think this is going to still be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be 33 to 31.
Gotcha.
I think the defense is just going to get it enough for the Seaman to win. And the Raiders team role I think will still have a very good year though. Don't get me wrong. I think they're going to have a very good one, and I think D'Angelo Fulford will still show that he belongs in this league. With
Yes.
this game for sure. All right, the start of the Sunday games: the Berlin Thunder against the Warclaw Panthers.
Well, I would love for Roselau to win, so I'm picking them to win. Uh, I'm going 27-17 Roselau.
Yeah. I picked the Panthers in this game too. I think Berlin. I think Jakob Sullivan's going to be fine with
Yeah.
Berlin. They're going to be a team that's going to be really tough. Their defense was really good last year. This Panthers team, though, is just going to be a ball control team, right? They're going to be a
Yes.
team that's
Very
not
much
good.
David
Yeah.
Berzakowski on the ground.
Well, they
All of
brought in another running back too that played in the States as well. I can't remember off the top of my head what his name is,
I
but
know what you're talking about. I can't remember his name either.
they brought
But
him in too. So that's 2 running backs. I think that's going to be good. So that way
yep.
Dawid doesn't have to be the workhorse. He averaged 6 yards a carry to the beginning half of the year. Kind of sputtered a little bit down the stretch because I think he was worn out. So I think that's why they
Yeah.
brought in the other guy. So this is going to be ball control. Steven Duncan has a strong arm, big side, big guy. I predicted this game to be a 1-score game. I'm a little more conservative because I don't really like to just be aggressive with the scoring. Um, I don't remember what the score was, but I know it was like a 1-score game for the Panthers in this one. The Rhine Fire and the Cologne Centaurans.
All right. Ryan Fire.
You started that off exactly how I started off my prediction on OT. So
Ryan Fire should run over him. And when I say run, I mean pass over him is what I should say. But I'm predicting a high scoring game from Ryan, 40, and I think that Cologne can score some points too. So I'm going to say 40-20.
This one I remember because I made a joke about we could possibly see a 60 burger already.
I
Look,
want to say that. I don't want to say that. I want to see a semi decent game out of this.
so I do too. That's the thing, as I do too. But Cologne really had issues last year.
I know.
And Isaiah Weed is making a huge jump up as far as the competitive nature is concerned.
I'm betting on you, Isaiah. I want you to succeed, man.
Yeah. Hey, and Isaiah, I hope you prove me wrong. Let's just put it that way. Like I hope you do. I love being proved wrong. I do. I did not predict 60 though. I predict 54. I was a little more conservative.
Oh, okay.
But I did predict Cologne to score 17 because I think that like you, I think that they can score. I think that they're going to. I don't want to say come out and show the world that they are going to be like some kind of offensive powerhouse, but I think they're going to.
Yeah.
I think they're going to come out to show that they're going to be able to hang. It will just be how well will they be able to hang in the future. You know, like it just won't be this game, unfortunately for them. So
Yes.
Hamburg Sea Devils against the Prague Lions. Another game with a lot of question marks.
Yeah, I really do not know what the Lions are going to look like week 1. And we have an idea of Hamburg, even though last year they kind of dipped a little bit from their previous form. I think, screw it. Prague wins, upset. Prague wins, upset, because we don't know what's going to happen. It's the ELF. Who knows what's going to happen? And
So
Hamburg was on a down year last year. So Prague, this is their moment. This is their time to show that they're ready for this league, that they're not going to have any issues going forward.
Hey, you and Zach both. This was the game that Zach picked different than me as well. So I mean, I picked Hamburg to win this game, not because of anything. It was just it's hard with both these guys because Javarian Smith, and Kyrie Lyles, like they're relative wild cards because it's their first year in this level. Like, what are we expecting? What's Prague going to look like? They definitely put together an offseason that looked solid on paper. And Hamburg is still Hamburg. Like they always seem to have like a competitive team. They were competitive last year. So it's just I just went with the team that was a little more competitive last year than this one, but I had this one be like a 4-point game. So I mean,
I gotta get my scores. Hold on, I'm gonna go with 21-17. I'll do
21-17. That's 4-point game. Mine were both in the 20s, but I think it was like 28-25 or 28-24 or something like that. So yeah. So that's a fantastic score, by the way. I like that one. So
thanks.
But it's interesting that both my co-hosts now have gone against me on that game. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. And the Munich Ravens again. They brought back Chad Jeffries. They're going against another team that brought back their quarterback in Riley Hennessy with Stuttgart Surge. Strong offense last year, weak defense. They did lose Markel Castle. Will the receivers be good enough for Chad Jeffries? And on the flip side, defense was really good. Offense kind of sputtered or was very inconsistent last year for Stuttgart. This is probably going to be the game of the week, in my opinion. And if not Warclaw in Berlin, but this might be the game of the week.
I agree, man. I like Munich a lot. I love what they're doing. I love their organization. I really like that they brought back Chad Jeffries and they believe in him to get the job done going forward. And I think they'll be rewarded with that with a week 1 win. And I think it's going to be 35-17. I'm picking that.
Okay. 35. You said 35-17?
I did.
Wow, I thought you said game of the week, not beatdown.
Hey, it might be game of the week, but I think the Ravens are going to come out and make a statement. Last season they had a really good offense. Their defense let them, got left behind a little bit by the offense. If they can come out and have a good performance, this can be a team that can make a run in the playoffs and perhaps make a championship game.
So wait, you froze. You picked Munich?
I picked Munich.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so this is going to be a second game that you and I did pick differently. because I believe. Well, now I'm not sure. Now you got me second guessing whether or not I did. I think I picked Stuttgart because I don't know what the Munich defense is going to look like, and I don't know if the receivers are going to be strong enough to be able to help Chad Jeffries.
Yeah.
That's going to be kind of a team that you are, you know, kind of need to see to get an idea. But I did predict a close game. I think it was only like a 3-point game. I think it was like 27-24, something like that. So I did predict a close game, but I do predict this game to be the game of the week. But by any means, it's just I gave the edge to Stuttgart because of the defense last year, and without us really knowing the rosters or having them in front of us this year, I got to take that into account just a little bit.
I think that Munich is going to come out and they're going to make a statement. If they win, it will be a statement win for Munich, I believe.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, man. So that's going to do it for here Summer Showcase. This week 1, episode 1, season 2. It went longer than I expected, but hey, we had a lot of fun talking about it, and I'm completely fine with that across the board. Do you want to plug anything, Bryce, before we log off, my man? By any means?
Pylon Productions on YouTube, on Instagram, Pylon Pros on Twitter. I'm tweeting a lot more recently. Nah, man, that's all I got.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm all over social media now. I have decided to dive in on it. I post a little bit about everything everywhere. I have Threads, I have Instagram, I have X, I have Blue Sky. If you've never heard of Blue Sky, it's basically a version of Twitter that's, in my opinion, better. So if you want any of my socials, I'll throw them out there at some point in time over the course of the year. But primarily, you can hit me up on X. It's just it's MW77. It's spelled out. It's not the number. It's spelled out. So that tends to throw people off a lot of times when I say that. So. Yeah, for sure. And that's going to do it. We have a commercial from our sponsor real quick, and we're going to sign off until next week.
This is Current. It's the card my parents used to pay me for mowing the lawn, running errands, and doing well in school.
Oh, wow.
This is the card I used when we got the idea to make our own clothes. And we spread the word, drove downtown, and sold everything we made. This is the card I used to do the things that really matter. This is Current. Visit Current.com and download the app for free today.